I will create a new project by clicking on the new project window and call it Premiere Pro Revision. And I'm going to File, Import, and I'm going to gather some media. Selecting a folder, I can browse through my system and find different folders. So as I open the folder, what I'm getting in my project is a folder also. Inside the folder, if I double click the folder, it opens a window that's a free-flying window that has all my media. I can open this up and browse through my media and check each shot. And as you're browsing through the shot, you can verify the content of every media or sound. I will close this. My media is still here. In my windows, I will choose a workspace. The first workspace I choose to begin a project is Assembly. Assembly gives me a big browsing window, and I can start assembling and viewing my video window here. So continuously press on Alt, I double click on the folder, so it opens the folder within this field. And I will open a new sequence. The first shot I will drop into my sequence, I will just simply grab and drop the shot, will create the changes that I need for this sequence to be in the proper format. By double-clicking each shot, I can browse through each shot and see the content of my show. I can see here B-roll, and I have graphics that have been created in other programs. And I can browse through all my material like this and get familiar with my show. My sequence always appear at the end here. If I create a new sequence to edit just a narration, for instance, I often do this. I open a second project, sequence 2. I can name this just by clicking on the name and say narration master. So there I will put all my narration. I will drop a shot in my sequence 2 just to set its values to the project. Command click. I will drop them all into this timeline, overriding my coffee shot here, and I will get rid of that coffee shot. Now I have a sequence just to cut my narration. Here is my zoom button to get close or far from my timeline. And when I cut sound, I always use my tools and I expand my tracks. I want to see the waveform. Now I'm ready to assemble, so I will choose a window. If I expand my tracks, I have access to a middle range, and when I touch this middle range, I have an up and down arrow that appears, and I can put my volume down or up. I will just put it a little lower just to be on the safe side, so 5, 5.5, and I will keep that. And I will put the same level on all the other tracks because you see they're a little lower. I can select this shot, select all the other shots, so I'm going to zoom out and select all shots after, and paste the attributes. And when I paste the attributes, I will paste the volume attributes. I didn't do anything else, but I'll accept exactly like this because it will simply make all levels the same. So now I've adjusted all my levels. I'm ready to cut my narration. I'm going to try to find something that looks like a beginning. I think that's the one. So I'm going to choose this first clip and put it in the back. Simply put it in the back. I will trim the space here.
In the foothills of Africa's fourth largest mountain. Tell us their story.
I think that's enough for me. I will just cut this here, trim it out, and go to the next one. So I'm going to trim this to my play head. I can eat the space in between by simply selecting the empty space and pressing on delete. Selecting the empty space, press delete. So now I have, I'm going to choose my tool number 3, which is my ripple edit, and when I cut to the playhead, it will eat up the space. And here again, I will ripple edit.
Fair trade wages. The farmers of
This doesn't make sense. It's an empty phrase. I will just cut it off using my ripple tool.
The farmers of Delicious Peace Coffee Co-op are a testament to this mutually beneficial relationship.
Here I can remove this space here.
Are a testament co-op.
I'm just going to take my C blade, C for blade, cut here, use my left and right arrows to find the exact point, left, left, and then take my ripple tool again and just cut this little emptiness here so I got something more snappy.
Peace Coffee Co-op are a testament to this mutually beneficial relationship, which they have enhanced.
Again, C for blade. I'm going to cut right here. I can zoom in if I want to make sure that I'm really doing the right thing. I can cut here. V for pointer. Take the space out.
Enhanced.
C for cut. I'm going to cut here. Take my ripple edit and eat the space here.
Enhanced by adding the requirement of peace.
There we go. So here's my narration. So I'm going to select all these tracks, take the pointer tool and move them away. I'm going to take the last segment and put it instead here because I think it belongs there.
Tells their story. Yet as we hand our dollars
That makes more sense. Then I would eat the space there, select delete.
partners in supplying our caffeine libation. In the global world of commodities, coffee
Of course, I'm going to space all these a little bit because it's another part of the story. So I'm going to space it a bit here.
group of Christian Jew tells their story. Yet as we hand
And here again, I can space that. So I'm going to take all these and space it a little bit. So there I have a very practical show of 50 seconds. Here is my time. You can see about 50 seconds. I think that's very healthy with titles beginning and end. I have a 1-minute show. Alt click and I reopen my sequence 1. Then I can drop my sequence 2 into my sequence 1.
in the foothills of Africa's fourth largest mountain.
Now I have all my narration into my main show. I'm going to take Alt click and remove the visual of this sequence because it's an empty visual. And I'm going to remove here this shot because I don't need it. Now I'm going to start to build a visual, which is the B-roll. So I can delay this a little bit just to have my title in. And then I can trim this.
Foothills of Africa's fourth largest mountain.
I'll start with a shot of the plants.
In the foothills of Africa's fourth largest mountain.
Trim this. Show a farmer. So I think this is the shot I need here.
Delicious
I'm going to trim this shot and place it back.
Delicious peace grows in a Ugandan coffee bean. Tells their story.
And now I'm going to put a dissolve in between those two shots. So I'm going to control click on the cut and get a default transition. And now I'm going to look at my effects panel here, and I'm going to look for my transitions just to see where are my controls. Video transition, dissolves, and I will select my default to be film dissolve because that's the one I prefer. So I control click here on film dissolve and set selected as default transition. I'm going to select this transition and remove it, and so I can apply now my default transition by either taking my transition from the folder and dropping it here, or control clicking and applying my default. Control clicking is always good because when you control click anything, you have access to all kinds of commands. If it's a soundtrack, it's commands for sound. So here I have my dissolve. To insert here the map of Africa so that I know a little bit more where I am in time and space. And cut here. Alt click on the soundtrack, remove the soundtrack, drop that down, and even drop it down on top of my shot, which will overwrite. Now I've overridden this shot, and I can put another dissolve here, control click, and apply dissolve, so I have a second dissolve. So I'm going to take the music here and just drop it in. And drag it so it starts now. Control click and apply fade. So if I select a shot, I do I for in, I play, O for out, then I grab and drop this shot, so I've made selections. I have a drop frame here. You can see that there's an emptiness here. I'm going to zoom in and see what happened. My shot here is a bit long, and I'm going to take this shot and bring it in. So now I zoom out to see where I am. I have a few shots to fill in. It's always good to go from wide shots to close-ups. It creates nice rhythm. So I have an in point here and an out point, and I'm going to drop that in and trim it. My white triangles indicate that I'm right on the shot. And slide it here. So you see it took this event and elongated this event, and it trimmed on the other event at the same time. So that's my fourth tool. So it's a rolling edit tool. I can choose the pen. Just before he talks, I'm going to put a marker here and a marker when he talks. And I can take that marker down. So now I have a nice dip of the soundtrack. Now, I'm just going to move those keyframes a little earlier so the sound comes down faster. So here I'm going to continue the B-roll. So here I'll take a shot of. So here I'll just put it down a little bit, not too much, 2 or 3 dB. Here, same thing. What I can do here is create a new sequence. And I'm going to take my master and put it right in there. Change sequence settings. And now that's my whole show. and it stops here. I'm going to duplicate this whole film, so Alt-click on the video and drag it up. That created a second segment of video exactly the same size, same frame rate, everything. And on this one, I will apply my black and white filter, trim or cut this extra video layer, and put my dissolve on this one. So here, if I write on my search browser timecode, I find the timecode filter. I drop the timecode filter on the video. It will appear, of course, into my effects control. Timecode is here. And so I have a small, nice little timecode here. And in my effects browser, I can resize it. I can put it to the side by positioning it. Resize it maybe a little bit like this here so people can read, even on a cell phone. Probably where they're going to watch it anyways, from where they are. And this is my timecode version. Now, if I don't want a timecode, click off the FX button, which removes it, but it's still there. If I want it again, I just put it back so I don't have to do it again. So I just click that off and output this show. File, export, media, coffee, that's good. The name, the format size, QuickTime. I'll choose this format, and you can play it back to see what it looks like. Overall, if it's good, you'll see right here in the screen, it's a preview screen. You like what you see, then you're good to go, you export. And that's the basis of editing.
A group of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim coffee farmers affirmatively decided to marry peaceful interrelationships with economic development.